Hey everyone, welcome to the AutoCAD 2026 full mini course for beginners. We're going to do everything we can to get you guys started in AutoCAD so you can start drawing right away. It's going to be as comprehensive as we can make it in as short amount of time as possible. So if you're ready to do that, let's dive right into it. All right, so the first thing that we need to be familiar with is when we start AutoCAD is we need to be familiar with the interface. So the interface that you see here is going to be the same for both the LT version and the full version of AutoCAD. I'm using the full version right now, but I do occasionally use AutoCAD LT because, well, a lot of the capabilities are the same. So if you are using AutoCAD LT, then this tutorial will work for you. The only parts that you won't be able to use are the 3D portions of this course, and that's because AutoCAD LT does not have 3D. If you don't care too much about that, that's absolutely fine. That's wonderful. We're just going to start and go through the 2D, then we'll move on to the 3D, and then we'll kind of focus on a few other things after that. So what is the interface like? It looks a little confusing when you open it up, but it's actually not that bad. So if you come here, you can see we have our drawings here. These are all drawings that I've worked on or drawings that I've worked on with clients and customers. And you can see that I have them here, or even YouTube videos. This is one of my most recent YouTube videos. And this is where your most recent drawings are going to show up. This isn't an exhaustive list. It's just the most recent and last opened. So it's going to say last opened. I can sort them by name, last opened, but these are the ones the program has access to right now. And these are recent drawings that I've done. And I can search them. You know, it says they're recent. You can have a lot of lines here, a lot of layers of, just projects that you've worked on, so you don't have to really worry about losing them. If you need to open it, you can just come here, click Open Files. You can find it in your file system. We're not going to go through that today because that's pretty straightforward. So you can kind of save things where you want it and then open it from there as well. So you can also open older AutoCAD versions in AutoCAD 2026. All versions of AutoCAD are kind of backwards compatible with each other, so that's really good to go. Really good to know, sorry. Once that's done, you can come here and we can go and open a new drawing. You can see we have acad.dwt. You can browse templates, get more templates online. If you click Browse Templates, you're going to be brought up with this. So what this is here is this gives us the ability to select what kind of drawing we want to start with. So you can see here I have ACAD named plot styles, acad.dwt, acad3d.dwt, and all these other things here. We don't need to worry about any of this right now. We're just going to open a standard drawing, which is acad.dwt. So you can click that and click Open, or you can just click New and it'll automatically start and open an acad.dwt. I'm just going to go over the interface a little bit more. If you've already opened it, that's fine. You can see here we have Autodesk projects, learning, my insights. You can see I don't have any Autodesk projects. Learning, you can go learn a little bit more about AutoCAD, and the information's pretty good here. So if you need help, you can go here. My insights doesn't really matter. And then down here we have all of our little hyperlinks that we can go to. So what's new in AutoCAD 2026, online help, community forum, customer support, all these other things. We don't need to worry about those. We just need to open a drawing. So we're just going to click New, and we're going to open a brand new drawing. So you're going to be brought here, and you're going to be able to start drafting right away. So don't get too flustered or anything. This is going to be quite simple to run through. It'll be okay. If we just need to set up a few things first. So one of the most important things that you can do when you're doing this is setting up your drawing by setting up your units, setting up your snaps, and setting up your grid. So your grid might be off. So if you just come down here and click this button that I see here, it's called Display Drawing Grid. You want that on. You can also press F7 to turn it on and off, or you can just type in grid mode into your command bar to get that going. So one of the most important commands before we proceed, and I highly recommend you remember this for as long as you're ever going to be working with AutoCAD, is a command called din mode or dyn mode. It depends who you talk to with how they pronounce it. But if you come down to your command bar here, you want to click it and you want to type in dynmode. If you follow the channel long enough, you already know I tell everyone to put this in almost every video because it's really useful. Once you see that command pop up, press enter, and it's going to ask you to enter a new value. If yours does not say 3 in those little brackets, you can see right here, mine says 3. You want it to say 3. So if yours doesn't say 3, press 3 and then press enter. And what that does is it allows you to have your command bar show up when you're just typing. So instead of having to go down to the command bar, type in units, press enter, and open it, what I can do is I can just start typing. And what it's going to do is it's going to have that command just show up for us right there. So we just press enter. We have our units. You can select your type. So we want architectural, decimal, engineering, fractional, scientific. In this case, we're just going to do architectural. Your precision you can adjust as well. If you're going to be doing this, most people are going to be doing 1/16 of an inch. If you're in metric, when you're doing architectural, you can switch it. You can switch. You don't have to use inches. You can use millimeters, centimeters, meters, all the way up to light years for some reason. But we're just going to stick with inches because we don't have a house that is light years, long or wide. So inches, decimal, degrees, precision. You're thinking, why are we doing an insertion scale in inches for architectural if we're going to be creating things in feet? And that's simply because AutoCAD will already give you the feet with that because it's an architectural. So you don't really have to worry about it. So it's going to give you sample output here. This is going to show you what it's going to look like. So 1 and 1.5, 2 inches, 0, and then that looks okay to me. And then for lighting, you can select what you want. But, in most cases, you're not going to have to deal with that. So just click OK, and our units are set and ready to go. Now, before we start drawing, we want to set our snaps. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to go to this little connection, little bar here. You can see it says snap cursor to 2D reference points. We want OSnap on, so you can turn it on and off. I recommend, I usually keep it on, but in a lot of cases you can turn it off. If you click this down arrow, you're going to see these are all the snaps I currently have set. I highly recommend you pause the video right now and go and select these ones and unclick or unselect the ones that I don't have, simply for the fact that it's going to be a nightmare for you to follow along if you don't have these snaps set, and you're going to be very frustrated. You're going to be turning your snaps off, and you're not going to be as accurate as you should be. So please keep that in mind. So go set that, and then come down here, and you can see we have our drawing. We can set our scale. So set your scale to what you need it to be. I'm only going to do 1:1, so it's not too big of a deal. But select what you need to draw in, and again, this is going to depend. And it matters on what you're doing, but I'm just going to do 1:1 for these examples. So that is that set. So that's all your setup and prep, and you're ready to start prepping to draw. So that's the main prep. Now you're ready to prep. You're going to get ready to start drawing. So we're going to touch on layers for a minute because that's really important before you get started, and we'll continue on in a moment. All right, so the next thing that we're going to want to do is take a look at our layers. So layers are probably one of the most important things you're going to be dealing with when you're drawing in AutoCAD, whether you're doing mechanical drawings, whether you're doing architectural drawings, whether you're doing pretty much anything, you're going to need to set your layers properties. So if you follow my cursor here, you can see we have our layer properties tab. We can just click that, open it, and we're going to be brought with this dialog box. One thing that you guys are going to notice throughout this tutorial is that we have a lot of dialog boxes. So please keep that in mind as we go through. So if you come here and you see these little bars up here, we have one that looks like it's got a little sun on it, a little freeze, an X, and a check. So you can see here, if I click the little sun one, it opens a new layer. So we're going to call this walls. I'm just going to call it walls. And then if I want to activate my layer, so I'm not currently on that layer. What I want to do is I want to double click it so I have that check, or what I can do is I can come here and click the check mark box up here, whichever one works for you. For the color, we're going to keep it white, and you can go and adjust your color, adjust your line type, adjust your line weight, and all this other fun stuff. So you're just going to want to go through and create as many layers as you need. So windows, doors, we're going to do windows, all these kind of fun things. You're going to want to set these up so that you have enough. So I actually have a tutorial that I posted on the YouTube channel not too long ago. That's just a quick tutorial on a basic floor plan. And we're going to segue into that in a moment once I kind of go over everything, just to give you a little bit more information. So you can see here, you're going to want to set your layers. And another thing to note is when you're drawing, you're going to want to switch your layers frequently. I fall into the trap too, where I just draw things in one layer and then I have to select it and go back and change all the layers. So I'm going to show you what that does. So if I just come here and I draw, let's say, a line, and it's on my door layer, if I want to change it, all I got to do is select that, and then I can switch it to my wall layer. And you're going to see here, it's going to, so if I select it, it's going to show you the layer it's on, and if I click escape, it's going to go to my layer that I'm currently selected for drawing. So you can switch them without swapping layers. So one thing to note though is when you are swapping layers for something, it's not going to automatically set everything else that you draw to that layer. I should actually change the colors so it's a little easier to see. So I'm going to make that maybe green, make this one red or whatever. So you can see here I have my, if I select it, it's my walls. If I press escape, it's my doors. So if I go and I start drawing another line, it's going to be on my door layer. So I'd have to go select that again, switch it to my walls, and then it's back to doors. So if you're drawing multiple things and you're finding you're doing that all the time, you have to select your walls, and then you'll be able to, click around and draw things. So that's just something that's really important to know. Layers is usually something you talk about a little later, but I figure since we're going to be diving into things almost right away, that this is something that's really, really, really important for you to have. So now we're going to go over the interface and the ribbon. So what you can see here is we have these, and these are called ribbons. So what the ribbon is it's something that allows you to, adjust your drawing and to, do different things. You can see here we have our home tab. So this is where you're going to be doing all of your drawing, most of your drawing and everything in here. That's your home tab. So, you got your lines. So if you click line, you can also just type commands if you want to use them. So if I type in line, or I can see that a variety of tools are going to pop up. If I press enter, it's going to automatically start me on that. So I can come here and I can click around, and you can see I'm drawing lines. I also have polylines. So what's the difference between a line and a polyline? Well, you can see here a line is a specific segment. So while I drew all these together, they're all their own separate line segments. So what I have to do is when I'm switching layers, if I grab this, I'm only grabbing the top. If I'm grabbing the side and the top, I'm only grabbing that. If I'm grabbing the bottom, I'm only grabbing that, and you get the picture. It's a separate line segment. If I click polyline and I draw the exact same thing, so if I come here and I'm going to draw the exact same thing with a polyline, I'm going to grab it, I'm going to move it, and I'm going to close out the shape a little bit, sorry. Then I'm going to grab a polyline, I'm going to take this, and then I'm actually going to join this just to show you. So you can see here that if I select this, I can click anywhere on my little rectangle here, and it's going to select the whole thing. Every single line segment is going to be selected. Whereas if I click this, it's only selecting the right-hand side here. If I click this one, the right-hand side, everything is selected. So that's the difference between lines and polylines. For the most part, you're going to want to be using polylines for everything because it just makes things way easier. However, if you do lines and you do find that easier, then you can do that as well. If you're drawing lines and you want to just use lines but then make them polylines, what you can do is if you take your cursor, so I'm going to grab my mouse here, and what you want to do is put your cursor in the bottom right-hand corner of your thing, or the top left-hand corner, or whatever. As long as you're going over all the lines in your drawing, it's fine, but I'm going to do in the bottom right. If I left-click and I pull to the right, everything that is being touched is going to be selected. So you can see that my selection box is green, and that signifies, hey, everything that is being touched, I want to select. So I don't have to actually highlight this whole thing. Well, in this case, I do because I have lines going in every direction. But if I only wanted to highlight, if I only highlight, for instance, this much, it's going to still select the full amount of those two line segments on my right and my left. I don't have to fully engulf it in order for it to be registered that I'm selecting it. So if I do that, I can select it. And you're wondering, why am I telling you that? Because if I do it from the opposite side, so if I grab from the bottom left-hand corner and pull to the right, you're going to see instead of a green interface here, a green selection area, it's blue. So what the blue signifies is I need to go and fully select everything. So you can see here, I'm only selecting the bottom in this case because I'm not fully enveloping the sidelines or the top line. So you can see here, when I do the left-hand side, you can see I'm pulling it and it's green. It's selecting the right and left-hand side without me going over the entire object. I only have to select like a corner of it. If I only do the corner, I'm selecting those two lines. Whereas if I'm doing blue, I can't do that. You can see here, nothing's selected when I'm doing that. And I have to fully go over the bottom line to select it. And if I want to select all this, I have to fully go over it. So keep that in mind. That's something that was never taught to me until I actually started using the program a little later on in the industry. So keep that in mind when you're selecting things, that when you're going left or you're going right to left, you're selecting everything. Or you're going right, or you're going left to right, you have to go select everything. So right to left is green, and that means you can just select the little portions. Left to right, you have to select everything, and it's blue. So keep that in mind. So that is lines and polylines. You also have your circles here. So if I come here, I can draw circles. So I can go draw a circle. And, it's pretty straightforward. And you can see here when I'm drawing things, I have everything in my units. So this is a foot. So everything is proper in the way that I want it to be. I can also type in my lengths. So I don't actually have to select my line and, pull it to where I want it and just mess around with it. If I know I want my line to be 5 feet, I literally type 5, put my foot there. And if I know what angle I want it, I just put 0, I press enter, and it's 5 feet. So you don't really have to mess around with that. So again, I'll give you another example of that just so that you're fully aware of this. This works for lines, polylines, anything you're working with. You click where you want it to start, and let's say you want it to be 5 feet. You type in 5 feet, you press tab, and that brings you to your angle. You can do 90 degrees. If I do 90, it'll go up. And you're going to see I have a 5 foot 90 degree angle, and it's going to be perfect. So please keep that in mind. When you're drawing, you're going to want to use typing commands a lot more than, just clicking around and making estimates. Because when you're making estimates, that's going to mess up a lot of your drawings. I'm going to show you that a little later. And the reason for that is because it's just going to create errors in the drawing. So please keep that in mind. Try to keep things as tight as possible. Again, if I click my circle, I can show you an example of that here. If I click my circle, it's going to show me how much of a radius I have. So in this case, I can type in 10 inches and it will give me that as a radius. But if I don't want to do the radius, I can also do the diameter. So if I click my down arrow on my keyboard, you're going to see I have 1 5/8 of an inch, because that's what it's kind of trying to do right now. But if I click the down arrow again, it's going to have diameter. So if I do that and I click that, I can press enter, and now I'm going to be doing my diameter for my thing here. So I can do 12 inches, which is a foot, and there you go. So that's your lines, your polylines, and your circles. You can see we have a variety of circles here. Play around with it until you're comfortable, because it's something that's really important to kind of grasp and get onto, because moving on, we're going to be going into some more intense things as well. So if you come here to the arcs, you can see here we have arcs. And what we have in the arcs is we have 3-point, center, start, all these different types of arcs here. 3-point is very simple. You specify the start point, you specify the second point, and then you specify the end. I messed that up, so I'm just going to click this. Second point, I want it, let's say, in the middle here, and then the end is here. You're going to see here I created a very nice arc right here. Another thing to note is it's not going to automatically join when you draw things. So if you do join it, it's going to act like a polyline. You can see I can't actually connect this to this, so you can only kind of connect things. Not everything can connect to each other, and in this case, the arc will not connect to this box here. So keep that in mind. If we come up here, we're going to see that we have our rectangle tool. So what does the rectangle tool do? Well, we have rectangle and polygon. So I'm going to give you a quick example of that. So if we come here, you're going to see if we click on our rectangle tool, we can grab in any direction we want, and we can just create a rectangle. So we don't actually have to use lines and polylines to create a rectangle. The rectangle tool has a lot of uses, and it's probably going to be one of the most common tools you use. If you don't want to use lines and polylines, that is. A lot of people like using the rectangle tool. It's really good, because what you can do here is you can just click and you can set it to where you want it to go. So I'm going to show you how to you create a rectangle for a minute. So if I click here and I know the dimensions of my my rectangle that I want, you're going to see here, let's say I want it 2 feet by 2 feet. So again, I can manually pull it to 2 feet. So I can actually read. You can see here I have it on the right side, and on the bottom I have 2 distances. So these distances are showing me how big the rectangle is, obviously. But if I pull it, it's going to show me, how to, or where it is exactly. So I can just kind of pull it where I want it as well. But again, typing makes it so much faster. So how do I start typing in this? How do I make sure I know I'm typing in this? So you can see the bottom one is highlighted and selected, and that means I can actually start typing at any time and put in exactly what I want. So I can do 2 feet and, well, let's just do 2 feet. And then once I'm done with my 2 feet, I do not want to press enter. Do not press enter. You're going to want to press tab to go to the next dimension. And once you do that, that locks in your 2 feet so you can't move it. So you don't want to move it. It's going to lock it in. Now mind, because so you can see here, I can move my mouse, and it's going to restrict my cursor from moving that 2 feet. I cannot move that 2 feet right now. It's restricting my cursor. So this is also useful if you're trying to, you know one distance, but you don't know another. So in this case, let's say I know it's 2 feet across, but I don't know how deep it is. I can just go through my drawing from the start to the finish and go, okay, well, it's 2 feet this distance like I have here, but maybe it's 3 feet down. I don't know that, and I want to go kind of manually put it. I can do that as well. But if I do know, when I press tab, it doesn't matter where your cursor is. I'm just going to use it as an example. You can see here I have our little rectangle, thin rectangle here. I can just type in whatever I want, and the cursor doesn't matter. So you don't have to worry about where your cursor really is once you have things locked down or you're typing things in. So if I go here and I press 2 and I press feet, I have 2 options here. If I don't like that I put 2 feet in previously on the bottom dimension, I can press tab and it will move again, and it's automatically going to shift everything back to where it should be. But you can see here it still has the lock, so it's still kind of locked. And you can see here, once I press tab, everything is locked in. So keep that in mind. Both dimensions are locked in, but I can still manually edit it from here. It's not going to move with my cursor. So right now it's locked in at 2 feet. If I type in 3 feet and I press tab again, it's going to change it again. So this is nice and useful when you're trying to manually size things as well. So again, I can do that here too. I can maybe make this 4 feet. I don't know. And you can see here that it just keeps going. I don't like 4 feet. It's way too big. But there we go. So we have 2 feet and 3 feet. Once you're satisfied with your rectangle, press enter and your rectangle is created. So that's how you'd make a rectangle in AutoCAD. If we come up here, you can see that we have our rectangle tool here. We have our polygon tool. This is also quite similar. It's going to ask you to enter a number of sides that you want. So, if you want 8, you just type in 8. It's going to ask you to specify the center of the polygon or the edge. I would recommend specifying the center most of the time. It's going to say, do you want it inscribed in circle or circumcised about circle? It really depends what you want. So, specify the radius of the circle. So we'll just do 6 inches. And you can see here that we have our polygon here. So that's just how you do that. I can also come here. I can press it. Let's say I want 4 sides. I want the edge, let's say. And if I click edge, you're going to see that I can pull it from the edge. It's going to pull it from the edge, and I'm making it, and it's rotating. And I can just click there, and there it is. I don't think the polygon tool is used as much, but again, it's something that's useful to know. If you come here, you're going to see we have our center. So what's this? This is an ellipse. So we have our ellipse tool. We can press our center. It's going to ask you to, so hold on. Press your ellipse tool. You can see we have 3 options: center, axis, and elliptical arc. We want center, so if we click center, it's going to say specify the center, specify the endpoint, and then you can specify the distance. So this will go and create more like an oval shape for you. So again, this can be a circle, it can be not a circle, it really depends how you want it, but you kind of just stretch things kind of to where you want it. And the same kind of rules of apply as with the rectangle is you just kind of put it where you want it. So let's say I want 2 inches, and then I want it 2 inches again. It's going to go and create my little ellipse here, but you can see here that, and then I can also edit it and pull it and everything. But again, that's just useful to know. Then there's the hatching tool. We're not going to talk about this right now. We're going to talk about that a little later on. And you can see here, if we click down, we have all these other tools in here, but those aren't too important right now as well. So that's how you would get drawing with AutoCAD, and we're going to move on to modifying in a minute and continue on. All right, guys, so the next thing you're going to want to do is learn how to modify the objects that you draw. So again, we're just doing random examples. We've just done random examples, but in this part of the tutorial, in this part of the series, we're going to modify our drawing. So we're going to go over how to modify these. So I'm actually going to go and change the color of this just so that it's easier for us to see. I actually hate the brown color anyways. We're going to make it red. There we go. That's way better. All right. What is modifying? Well, it's exactly what you think it is. You're modifying your drawing, you're modifying your thing. So we've already modified things before, a little bit, not too much, but I'm going to go over it. So you can see here we have our commands. We have move, rotate, trim, yada, yada, yada. With the move command, you want to select your object, you press enter. It'll ask you to specify the base point. So when you see the AutoCAD telling you specify the base point of what you want to do, it's asking you to specify where you want to grab it from or paste it from, and you want to make sure that this works, because if I grab it down here and I want to put it so that it's flush, let's say with this line here, it's going to be difficult for me to do that. Whereas if I grab it and I move it and I specify this edge here and I want to flush it up, you're going to see it's going to snap directly to that with the snaps that I have set. So it's perfectly flush with that. So when you're moving things, you want to grab things and move them based on kind of where you want to put it. So please keep that in mind when you're using the move tool. So again, the move tool is just you click that, you click move, you type in move, you select your objects, you press enter, and then you move it wherever you want it. You can select multiple objects. So if I type in move and I select my objects, I can select all of these and I can move them. I press enter, and then it'll specify a base point. It'll move them all based on that base point here, as you can see right now. So that is the move command. If we go to rotate, this tool works quite similarly. You want to type in rotate. You want to select your object, press enter, select where you want to rotate from. This is also important. If you select the center, it's just going to rotate on the center. If you select a corner, it's going to rotate on that corner. You can see here, I'm just going to zoom in to show you it's rotating at the corner I selected. So keep that in mind when you're rotating, and that's all there is to rotating. And again, all of these tools kind of work in the same pattern. So you can either type it in or select them and then select all your objects and whatnot, and then you can use that. The trim command, I'm going to show you how to trim. So let's say I have a line that goes from here all the way to here. If I want to get rid of it in the center or on one side, I can type in trim or select trim, and I can go and just get rid of that. So what trimming does is, again, it cleans up your drawing. So you can see here I can trim whatever I want. It'll trim based on, you know, what's connected to what. And that's why it's really important, again, to make sure things are connected to each other. Because if things are close but they're not connected, you're not going to be able to trim properly. You're not going to be able to clean up your drawing properly. You're not going to be able to do anything like that. And it's going to be a real nightmare for you. Copying is another great tool that you can use. That's the next one in our list up here. So you select your objects that you want to copy. You press enter. It'll ask you to specify the base point. Again, that's something that's very important. It's going to ask you to specify the base point, and you want to specify it for where you want to put it. So let's say I want to grab it from here and put it on the top of this. I will grab it from here, and I will put it on the top of this, and it's going to copy around. And the thing is, when you use the copy tool, because there's two ways you can copy. You can copy the way we're doing now, or you can do just the standard copy, where if you've used Windows for any period of time, you know, if you hold Control and press C, that's going to copy things. That also works. And if you hold Control and you press V, that's also going to copy things. The difference with this is it's going to keep copying until I cancel the command. So you can see here, it's going to just keep copying until I cancel the command. So I press Escape. So for everything when you're doing this, you want to press Escape. And that's for drawing as well. Press Escape when you want to cancel a command. So keep that in mind. But if I select this and I just Control C it and Control V, it's going to, first of all, I can't specify a base point, and second of all, it's only going to copy it over once. So I can't continuously copy. So keep that in mind. It's not too much of an issue if you're, you know, only copying once. It's actually more quicker to do it that way if you're just copying it once and you're, you know, not needing to copy it multiple times, but just keep that in mind. We also have our mirror tool, so we can go and we can select the objects we want to mirror. We press enter. It's going to ask us to specify the first point of the mirror line. So we can do that in multiple ways. I'm going to give you two here. So here I'm going to specify my mirror line here. So you can see here it's mirroring on this line that I have. And you can see that it's going to let me put it in this in any kind of orientation that I want. So I'm gonna actually show you this again. If I want it up here, it's going to mirror from that point. So that's where it's mirroring from. So I can put it here. Once you select where you want to mirror and put it from, it's going to ask you if you want to erase the source objects. In a lot of cases, it's no, but in some cases, yes. In this case, no. We're going to select that. And you can see it is its own separate object. It's not connected to that one in any way, but that's how you would mirror something in this case. So I'm going to select that again, I selected that, press enter, specify the first point of the mirror. If I do this corner now, it's going to specify from that corner. And if I click and press no, it's going to do that as well. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And I'm going to get rid of this as well. If you want to get rid of things, if you don't like things, you select it, you type in erase, it will get rid of it. And that's just an easy way to do it. You can see here we have our stretch tool. For the most part, you're not really going to use the stretch tool by selecting things. Like you're just going to like select an object and pull it, like that's stretching. Or if I grab this and I grab this little block here. So the difference in this one is if I grab the corner, it's going to stretch the corner. If I grab here, it's going to stretch, you know, both sides that are with this as well. And you can see that that's happening. So you want to make sure that you're doing it properly. So that's how you would stretch things. You just kind of select your object and grab the boxes. But again, if you're using something like a polygon or a square, you're going to want to grab the center here and pull it out, because that's how you would get that, you know, to stretch. And that's just a better way of doing it. Another really important command is scaling. So if I select that and I press scale, I'm going to want to specify the base point of my scale. This is where it's going to scale from. I always recommend the bottom left-hand corner for most cases. So I'm actually going to do a different object. I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it, I'm going to scale it, I'm going to press enter, specify the base point. I'm going to do the bottom corner, and you can see here it's scaling from that corner. So that's why it's important. So it's scaling from that corner and it's inflating up, and I can scale it. So you can see here it's saying specify scale factor or copy reference. We don't need to do copying or referencing. If it says scale factor, you can scale it by a factor of something. So if I do 2 feet, it's going to scale by a factor of 2 feet based on what I did. So it's a little easier to scale when you're doing metric simply because the imperial system isn't great for this. But again, it does work. So we're just going to erase that. We're going to copy it again. But if you are using the imperial system and you are scaling, specify the base point, and then if you do a scale of, so you can kind of use inches, I guess, as your scaling factor. So 1 inch is the size it is now. 2 inches is going to be double, about. So it kind of scales based on that. So if I do 2 inches, it's going to be, I guess, the volume is twice as much, I guess. I'm not too sure, but it kind of seems like that. So keep that in mind. Another amazing tool that you can use is the array tool. So if we go to our arrays, we can click that. We can select our object here. We can press enter, and then this is going to show up. So don't get too confused. It's okay. It'll be fine. You can see we have all, I'm first going to go over how to do this manually, and then I'm going to go over how to do it, but just entering things. If I grab this square up here, this is going to pull it in each direction, and it's going to multiply my array by as much as I want there. So I can't actually type in anything. It just I just have to size it to kind of where I want it, and I'm just going to put it there for now. But if I grab this one here, the bottom right-hand one, the first arrow, so the first arrow that I pull is going to pull it only in that direction and change the array in that direction. If I pull the one up, it's going to change it in that direction. But the second arrows that are closest to the next square arrow, which allows you to move it. So if I grab that and move it, it allows me to move that array, and it gets it off of the main object. But if I grab these arrows that are really close, you can see it changes the spacing of my scaling. So this is going to change regardless. This is going to change it regardless of whether you choose to scale it like this. So you can see the scaling stays the same for that distance. If I change it like this, if I go back, everything's going to kind of change this, be the same. And you can see that I can adjust them all differently as well. If you don't want to guesstimate, because you can see here, if I grab the arrow, I can't really tell right now what it's doing. But what I can do here is I can actually close my array. I can select my array again. My array tab is going to show up again at my top. It's going to ask me for the amount of columns I want. So let's say I want 4 columns. I want 5 rows. For levels, that's a 3D tool. We're not going to be using 3D tools right now. But if you wanted 3D tools and you press 2, or let's say 3, and then I close the array and then I go into a 3-dimensional space, you're going to see that it's going to have 3 up and down, and we can adjust that as well. So if I select that, it's going to say between, let's say I want 4 inches. That's just something really cool you can do. So that's the layers. So useful in some cases, but in this case we're not going to. So I'm actually going to get rid of that, make it 1, make it 1. We're going to leave it. And then what I can do is I can change the in-between. So I can do 10 feet, and it's just going to automatically space it all out. 15 feet, and it's just going to space everything out properly for me. And then what I can do too is it's also going to change the total based on the amount of columns and rows you have. But if I do the total, I can change either the total or the between. So that's really nice, because if you do the between, it's going to automatically calculate the total. If you do the total, it's automatically going to calculate the between. So if I do 35 feet, you're going to see it's going to automatically calculate 11 feet and 8 inches. So, if I do 100 feet, and I do 50, you can see it's automatically calculating the distances and everything between them. So that's how you do a basic array in AutoCAD. So that's not the only type of array that you can do. If you're doing, let's say, part design or something, you're most likely going to use the polar array. So I'm just going to go over that. I rarely use path arrays, but and we're not going to touch on that because it's not too applicable. But if we click polar array, it's going to ask us to specify the center point of our array instead of the object. So this is kind of going to be where we want everything to kind of circle around. So if I want it to circle around down here, you're going to see that it's going to all circle based on where I clicked. And then you can see here, this line here is going to change my distances and everything between it. This one here is I'm going to be moving my array, and then this one here is going to change the spacing that I have for that array as well, and it all kind of works the same. So it's going to ask me for the amount of items. So there's a few differences. So the amount of items is how much stuff is in that array. So if I do 10, it's gonna have 10 items, and then between, we should always probably, if you're doing circles, leave it at 360. For rows, you're going to want to kind of leave that the same, because if I do 2, it is nice to have sometimes, but not always. We're just going to do 1. So So you can change that. Levels, same thing. But what we really want to do is change the amount of items and everything. We can change our spacing by just grabbing this, and it's going to tell us exactly what it is. So I can make it as big as I want. So that's how you do arrays and how you would modify most of your things in AutoCAD 2026. So if you come here, there's a few other tools in here, but these are all the main ones that most of you will use on a almost daily basis. The rest of them can be learned and taught, but again, we're trying to get as much across in as little time as possible. We already talked about layers, but we didn't go over too much about layers. We went over how to create them, how to, select the correct layer, again, how to select your color, your line types, your line weights. So again, if you click your line weights, if you come here, you can just select whichever line weight you want. Depends on what you need. A lot of the time, you can just click the default, and that's fine. And then for the line type, you can select, you're going to see we only have one available, but if we click load, we're going to be able to select all these other different ones as well. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to, again, select a line type and then add it to that layer. And that's what everything in that layer is going to look like. There's issues with that as well. So if we go here, we click load, we'll click the first one there, click OK. Click this, load it, and you're going to see AutoCAD is now our new line type. If I get out of here, you're going to see everything's changed because our line type has changed. So things are going to be changed. They're going to look whacked. Things are going to be off kilter, and you can adjust this. So I think if you type in LT line type scale, there we go. If we do line type, we can go here and we can adjust all this. So we click this, if we select that layer and we click properties, and we go here, you can see our line type. It's going to ask for our line type scale. This is going to change it based on this. So if I type in 0.5, it's going to be half. If I do 0.25, it's going to be a quarter. You can see that it's changing here. If I do 0.1, it's going to be 0.1. So you can see it's starting to take the shape that we had it as before. If I do 0.05, it's going to be like that. So you can go and adjust your line type scale like that for each individual line as well. And then there's also ways that you can change it, change everything. So if I just go and I select 1, we're going to put it back to 1. Again, if I put it to 2, it's going to double it. So you can see here, because it's so big, it still looks like the object. Again, you can do whatever you need to do to make it work. But if we come here and we can adjust our properties, we can type in our LT scale. And then this is going to change all of our line type factors. So again, that command is LT scale. Press enter, it's going to enter a new line type scale factor. If I do 0.1, all of my line type scales are going to change. And you see everything changes and it's all changed as well. So if I want to not use that, I can just go back to my continuous, click OK on my layer. Everything's going to go back to the way it is. So that's your line types and your line type scales. So if we go to our layers again, if I want to freeze a layer, so if I click the freeze on my layer, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to create a new layer. If I click the freeze, I don't know why it's not doing that. Hold on a sec, guys. If I select my layer here and I click freeze, select an object on the layer to be frozen. This is going to freeze just what I select, I think. Yeah, okay. So what freezing is supposed to do, instead of copying your things, is it's going to make it so that your layer kind of disappears. Oh, it's doing that because I'm selected on that layer. Sorry, guys. So you do that. Delete that, delete that. Another way, this is actually a good tutorial. If you want to delete things, you can just press this X here and it's going to delete the layer. Instead, you can also just press delete on your keyboard. It's not too bad. But if I go to my walls and I freeze it, you're going to see a little snowflake is going to be beside my layer. Everything's gone. Right? So what that does is it makes it so that things don't show up. This is especially important if you're doing dimensions and things. Because when you're doing dimensions and you're working on something, if you have dimensions, sometimes it's hard to see around the dimensions where you need to add new things, or if you need to adjust things. So in this case, freezing a layer will get rid of things you don't really want, to be over the layer, so that you can work on things and see things a little more clearly. So that's how you would do that. And that's why you would do that as well. So I'm just going to go back to there, and that's how you deal with your layers, and that's mostly how you deal with layers. So you can create new, freeze, delete, and select. So again, when you're trying to freeze a layer, you do not want to be on that layer because it will just copy it, make a new layer, and in the attempts, in the hope that you'll select that and it'll be able to freeze it. But don't do that. You want to be off that layer and do that. You also don't want to draw in the 0 layer. because it's the base layer. You're always going to want to draw in different layers that is not 0, 0 is just the base. So just keep that in mind. So once that's done, we need to go over blocks. So the next part of the tutorial is actually going to be a small basic floor plan where we don't go over blocks yet. We just go over basic floor plans to give you a little bit of a little bit of example of using AutoCAD, let's say in an architectural setting. If you are in mechanical engineering or other things and you're like, well, that doesn't really apply to me, there's also going to be a section in this tutorial where we go over precision drawing. So the reason why we have all of this included in this tutorial is because we believe it's important that you learn the macro and the micro. Okay, guys, so the next thing that we're going to want to do before we kind of move on is talk about offsetting. So offsetting is something that is really important, especially if you're going into the architecture space, but it's especially important if you're going into other things as well. So I'm just going to quickly show you what offsetting is. So let's say I want to draw a floor plan, and let's say I just have a square here. Let's say it's a 15 by 10 foot shed, and I have that right here. So I'm actually going to switch my layers here. I'm going to go to my walls. I'm going to select walls. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my object here. And I'm actually going to move it to its own plane so I don't have to deal with any of that. So I'm going to select my floor plan. Let's say this is my main base drawn out floor plan. What I want to do now is if I want my walls, is I'm going to want to type in offset. So I type in offset, I press enter, and it's going to ask me to specify the offset distance. So that'll be 6 inches in this case. And I can specify whether inside or outside of that line where I want it to go. So let's say I want it outside. Now I have lines, or I have a double line for offsetting. So one thing that I would like to mention when you're doing this though is you have to do this to lines that are joined and joined together. You can't do this to just lines. You have to kind of use it with polylines. So if you're not using polylines for your plans and everything, it's going to be very difficult to offset, because you can see here I used a polyline, which is the rectangle tool is a polyline in a rectangle form. But if I just go and select my line and I go and I draw my 10 feet, 90, and then I press enter, 10 feet, 0, press enter, and then I go here and I do this, and I line them up, and I have that. If I want to offset this, I select that, I type in offset, it's going to be 6 inches. It's going to ask me to specify, so I have to go and individually do it. But what happens here is it's not fully around my entire object, so I need to go and change this. So what we can do here, this is actually a good example for fillet. So this is another tool that's really useful. So if I type in fillet, this command will fill the issues we have. So we click that, and it's going to say select the first object or, and it's going to say, do you want a polyline, radius, trim, multiple? In this case, we're just going to do polyline. So it says select 2D. Well, we're not going to do polyline, actually. We're going to do just a standard fillet. We're going to select our first object. We're going to select our second object, and it's going to join them, and it's going to join it right there. So all you do is type in fillet, and it'll join these two together. So we'll just keep doing that. And that's how you would do that. So there's also a new command called multiple fillet, as you can see here. I was actually going to get to that. I don't know, it just showed it on the screen. But what that does is it allows you to do that, but you don't have to click around too much. So that's how you would use fillet. There's also different ways you can use fillet as well. So let's say I undo my one corner and I type in fillet. If I want a radius on that, I can select that, and it'll ask me to specify the fillet radius. So let's say I want 2 inches. It's going to ask me then to type that in, so I type in 2 inches, and then I specified my radius. I come here, you can see it's now curved. So what it does is it automatically puts in like an arc or part of a circle there for you, to just kind of, and that was 2 inches, which is what I specified, and it's going to put that in. So if I had it bigger, it would be bigger. If I put it smaller, it would be smaller, but that's how you would use the radius feature of that. So I'm actually going to undo that, and we're going to try that again. So no, hold on, I'm going to do fillet. I'm going to specify a radius. I'm going to do a radius of 6 inches, and then I'm going to select my two objects, and you're going to see now it's a larger arc right there. So that's how you would use, again, that portion of the fillet command. So we're going to do that, select that, click our two objects, and there we go. So that's how you do it in both of those cases. So that's how you use fillet, and that's how you use offset. And both of those are very, very useful tools. Fillet's more so used, I guess you could say, in, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. No, it's quite a useful tool to use just in any industry, really. So that's how we would do that. So the next thing we want to do is we want to talk about text a little bit. So with text, what you have is, if we come up to our annotation tab here, you can see we have our text styles, we have our dimension styles, we have our multi-leader styles, and our table styles. They all kind of work the same. But if we come here and we click on, you can see these are all standard. If you click annotative, this is going to select it so that it kind of automatically scales with your drawing, but you have to make sure that your annotative styles are set properly. And you can see here it's saying, what's your annotative scale? Well, I'm going to leave mine as 1:1 for the example. If I click here, and I click here, and I click down, you're going to see that I have my dimension, but it's way too small. So that's a problem that a lot of people run into with that. And again, I'm using a new drawing, so I'm having that problem. I'm going to create a new layer though, and I'm going to call it dimensions. I'm going to double click and set that as my layer. I'm going to switch that to a different type of color, I guess, like a pink, and there we go. So what we want to do with our layers and dimensions is, if you see these little boxes here, we can actually click those so we can adjust our styles. So if I come here, you can see annotative standard. What I want to do is I want to create a new one. I'm going to click new, and I call this new style example. And we're going to start with standard or annotative. We're going to start with standard because in this drawing, that's what we're doing. We're going to click OK, and then we can go and edit everything we need. So right here, you can see this is the view's overall scale of. So this is something that you can adjust. So if annotation is something you really don't want to deal with, I'm not going to talk too much about annotation because I have other videos on that. You can go check out our YouTube tutorials. We have a bunch of those on annotation scales just to fix that. But if you just come here to standard, if we type in 2, it's going to show us that it's going to get bigger. So it's kind of giving you an example, okay, this is how big it's going to be. So if we do 2, we can do 3, we can do 4. You kind of sometimes have to just mess around with your overall scale once you have your dimensions set, just to make sure that they work properly. So I'm just going to do 2 for the time being. It's going to ask me where I want to fit everything. I'm just going to leave that the same. If I go to text here, you can see it says text style, standard, text style, by block. We kind of want to leave that. Fill color, I don't want to touch that. And then you can adjust everything in here as well. I'm not going to touch anything. You can change your arrows and your lines, so you can do architectural ticks. Leaders can be changed as well. We're just going to leave that. We can click our lines and do everything we need to in there. You can select your units. So I don't want it decimal. So this is actually separate from the units that you set at the beginning of when we started this tutorial or this course. Is what you want to do is you want to set this to what you need it to be. So I'm going to select architectural in here as well. It has to be set here or else it will do it in decimal. And then for the measurement scale, it's going to ask you, you're just going to want to leave that at 1 for now. And then alternative measurements and some tolerances, you can adjust that to where you need it to be, and then we'll click OK, and we should be good to go. So I'm just going to come here, I'm going to go to my style, and you can see it says new style example is my dimension style. So text styles are different from the dimension styles, but they're both text. So I'm going to click that, I'm going to click where I want it, and then I'm going to go up, and you're going to see it is way too small still. So you can see it is in architectural, but I need to go here and I need to edit my style. So I'm just going to click this. I'm going to click modify. And then once I'm modifying it, I can adjust all this. So I can type in 5, let's say. And then it'll be bigger. I click OK. I close, and it's going to get bigger. So I need to keep kind of editing it until it gets to a place where I need it to be. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to click modify. Let's say 25. Press enter. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to close, and it's going to get bigger. And you can see it got bigger, and that's kind of good enough for what we're doing. So that's how you would edit and create a dimension style in AutoCAD. Same kind of rule applies when you're doing, text styles. If you come in here, you can change it. It's a little different. So I can create a new one. I'm going to call it new text style. We're going to click OK. I select it. I can adjust the height. I can make it annotative. I don't want it to be annotative. I can adjust how big it is, change its width factor. For the height, let's say I do 6 inches. It's going to be a little bigger. We're going to click close, and then what we can do is we can come here and we can start typing. And you can see that that's how big it is. We don't have to change anything, and it looks really good. So that's how you do your dimensions and your text styles in AutoCAD. You're probably going to run into issues with that, but don't worry about it too much. Worry about it after. But that's how you would deal with that as well. What I want you guys to do is I want you to open up a new drawing. So just come here, click new, and then we're going to have to set up our units and everything. So we're just going to come and type in units. You can see that our units is going to show up. We go here. we're going to do architectural, and it's going to switch to inches automatically. If you're in an international space and you want to use metric, that's absolutely fine. Just be aware that you're going to have to use, centimeters or meters instead of inches. But for those of you who are using and used to using the imperial system, as most of the people who watch this channel are American or Canadian, then this is going to suffice for you. So once that's done, click OK. We have everything set to where we need it to go, and we're ready to go. So next thing we want to do is make sure that our scales are set properly. I'm going to set mine to 1:1. So don't really worry about that. Just keep doing what you're doing. Come here to your snaps. Make sure your snaps are all set properly, because if you don't have your snaps set properly, you're going to have issues following along with me. So pause the video right here. Make sure that you mark your snaps to where I have them, and make sure that's good. Make sure that your grid is on as well. Your grid could be off by default for some reason, so make sure that's clicked on, and we're ready to go. Everything else is going to be set and ready. So what's the first thing we have to do before we start drawing, though? We need to set our layers. So you're going to come up here and we're going to see that we have our default layer. We're never going to draw on the default layer, but in this tutorial, we're going to slowly add layers as we go on. So I'm going to go here, click to this little star button right here. You can see it looks like a sun or something. Just click that, and you're going to see that you have a new layer pop up. We're going to call this walls, and we're going to change the color. You know what? Actually, we'll leave it white, and we'll leave everything the same. So we'll just do that, double click it so that it's selected, and then we can back out here and we're ready to start. So if you have guidelines already, make sure that you have your guidelines set out so you can, start drawing and following along with us. If you don't have guidelines, you can just see what I'm doing, follow along. I don't have any guidelines kind of set. I'm just kind of doing this to, figure out or give you just kind of a quick lesson on floor plans. So the first thing that you can do is you can either start with polylines or you can start with rectangles. So depending on your house, I would recommend maybe you start with polylines. But if you have something that's square, you can just come to the rectangle. You can start, draw your first room or whatever, and you pretty much have an outline for that one room at least. So what you can do is I'm going to use this actually as the base. So this is going to be the center of the house. So my house here is going to be a rectangle. I'm actually going to make it and scale it so that it's actually properly the size of a house or something. So you're going to see here I'm using inches. So what I need to do is make sure that my house is more than a foot. So if you're having issues zooming in and out, and you're like, well, why does your thing look bigger or smaller than mine? It's probably because you're zoomed out if you have all your settings the same as mine. So I'm just going to zoom out to where I need to be to make this kind of, a normal, I guess, sized home. So I'm just going to make the length. I'm going to probably make that about 25 feet. And then I'm going to make the width. Well, I actually did the width. I'm making the length, let's say 20 feet. Just for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to make it something like that. So what we can do now is we can go and measure this and we can figure out what's going on in here. So you can see here we can determine that what we have here is a 500 square foot area. So that's pretty small. It's like an apartment that you would kind of get, I guess you could say. It's pretty small. But you know what, for the sake of this, we're actually going to leave it at that. So make sure that you have something that's either a similar size or as big as you want. And we're going to get started. So what this is this is the measure tool. It allows you to do that. So if you click, it's going to give you the area in inches and also square feet. It's also going to give you the perimeter. And if you go inside and you don't click, you're going to see it's going to tell you how long it is and how tall it is and where your angles are as well. So you can see I have my right angles. So that's all fine and dandy. So the next thing we want to do is determine, well, how big do we want a kitchen in here? Do we want something else in here? Because this is an apartment, you're going to have like a little kitchen. It's not going to be too big. You're going to have a small sitting area, and then you're also going to need a bedroom and a bathroom, of course. So how big should the bathroom be? Well, that really depends. So I'm just going to go actually, and I'm going to offset this so that we have our walls. So type in offset. We can press enter, and then what we can do is it's going to ask us to specify a distance. So the distance we're going to want to put in here is about 6 inches for an exterior wall. So I'm going to do that. And then whether it's inside or outside, it really depends what you're doing. A lot of the time it's inside, so I'm going to do inside, and there we go. So once that's done, what we can do is we can take our polyline, and what we can do is we can select where we kind of want things to go. So if it's 500 square feet, if we go to our measure tool here, so it's 19 by 24. So it's kind of like, well, how big do I want each section? So I'm probably going to make the bathroom like in a small corner. Like you can see here that the measure tool is creating a small corner for me, so I can kind of see what that's going to be like. I'm going to try and make a small corner bathroom. It's going to have to fit a shower in there and everything. And then we're also going to want to, add a doorway. So I'm going to add a doorway right in the center here, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And then we're going to have some windows around this apartment as well. So we're just going to go here. And we're going to create that bathroom. So I'm just going to create a little square box like this. You don't have to do it this way. I'm just doing it the way that I think would be the best for the tutorial. And I'm going to say, well, how long should it be? Well, it needs to be big enough that I can fit in it. And, it needs to be big enough so that you can fit in it. It also needs to be big enough so you can have a sink, so you can have a bathroom, and everything you need in a bathroom. So I'm just going to play it safe. And we're going to do 10 by maybe 5 or 6. Because I think that's probably a reasonable size. This might be even a little too big, so I'm just going to put that right there though. And then we kind of need to determine how we want to orient this. So I'm going to keep it like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm actually going to trim out these corners here. So I'm just going to type in the trim command. I'm going to go here and you can see that I have only this left. I'm going to offset this by 4 inches instead of 6. And you're probably like, well, why are you offsetting it by 4 instead of 6? Because it depends on your area, but a lot of the time, most of the time, you're going to have floor plans and you're going to have 4 inches for the interior walls and 6 inches for the exterior walls. So once that's done, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to trim inside here. So we're going to just type in trim, and we're going to go click that, and we're going to click this as well. So once you're done that, we're going to have this room done. So then we need to determine how much space we have in there. So we're going to go back to our measure tool. We're going to say, okay, it's 4 feet 8 inches and then 9 feet 8 inches after we added the interior walls. I think that's sufficient for what we're doing. But again, I'm not trying to make everything super up to scale either. So make sure if you're, being asked in school or you're doing an actual project in AutoCAD, that you're getting the dimensions proper. I'm just doing this so I can get a tutorial out. So again, for the sake of the tutorial, make sure that, everything you're doing is proper for what you need it to be. And again, in this tutorial, we're doing it just so that we can get it done. I can show you kind of what needs to be done. So once that's done, we need to maybe create a kitchen. So I'm going to go grab my polyline tool. So I'm just going to type in 53 here on my keypad here to get my polyline tool going. And I want to determine how big I want my kitchen. So you know what? I'm actually going to cancel that command, and I'm going to use my line tool. So I'm going to press 55 here. And then I'm going to see, well, how far out do I want it? So I'm probably going to have it about 3 feet out you know what, 2.5. So I'll just do 2.5 feet. I'm going to do that. And then I can go and I can continue drawing, and I'm going to make sure that it's lined up. I'm just going to make sure that that's lined up. And then what I want to do is I want to measure, okay, well, how big is this distance? So that's 19 feet. So we're not going to have a kitchen that's 19 feet long. We're going to take that, we're going to shrink it in half. Once we've shrunk that in half, we can determine, okay, well, how long is it? Now it's 9 feet and 6 inches. That's probably better. So once that's done, we can select that. I'm just going to go up here. I'm going to select that, and then my erase command is 21. And then there we go. So once we're kind of done with this, we have, like, let's say our kitchen here. We have our bathroom here. We kind of want a bedroom, and we want a living room as well. So I'm probably not gonna put the bedroom right beside the bathroom. I mean, I could, but I don't think that's something that I want to do in this case. I'd probably maybe put the bedroom in this corner, but I'm just gonna put it actually down here. So I just need to determine, how big do I want my bedroom. So I can just come here. And we come here and it's like, well, do I want it that big? No, not really. I need to be able to fit a bed in it. But I also don't want to cut out all this space, because you can see here I have all this space that I'm missing out on, because maybe I do want a pantry. I need somewhere to put a fridge and everything. So maybe I'm actually going to take my bedroom here, and maybe I will actually put it up against the bathroom here. Maybe we'll give this an ensuite. This is a really small house, so we're just going to go here, and I'm going to make it 10 feet by, let's say, 8 feet. It's going to be pretty small, but again, we need to make do with what we have. So I'm just going to come here, and I'm going to draw. I'm going to make sure. So you can see here I'm having issues with it snapping to things I don't want it to snap to, But you can see here, if I try hard enough, you're going to see there's a green intersection cross here. That's telling me that it's in line with the point that I started from. So I click that, it's going to put it straight exactly where I need it. And then what I can do is I can take this, I can type in offset again. And then what I want to do, I want to type in offset. Press enter, I'm going to specify 4 inches, go inside, and there we go. So what I can actually do is I can get rid of this, and I can actually move everything up. So I'm going to trim this out, and I'm going to trim this out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this whole assembly here, and I'm going to move it up and line it up with this right here, because that'll give us just the 4 inches there. And that should be good. I'm actually also going to take it, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to go over so that it's all in line, and then I'm going to go trim this up and make it look pretty. And you can see here I have this issue here with this door being out. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a line, and I'm going to fix this up. So I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to put it in line with my wall here, because, well, you mean that's what I want to do. So you can do what you want, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go trim this, and there we go. So we have our drawing here, we have our bedroom, we have our bathroom, and now we can figure out what we want to do with all of this space here. So this is going to be a kitchen, so what we're going to do is we're going to stick like a fridge here. I don't know how big fridges are, so I'm just going to kind of guess. So let's just do 2.6 to make it fit, 3 feet, and then I'm going to grab this, I'm going to move it. It's probably going to stick out a little bit. You know, oven and everything is going to be on these cabinets here. I'm probably actually going to take a line, and I'm going to drop it across here, and that's going to allow me to have upper cabinets, just so it's kind of distinguished. So one of the things I have not done is create another layer. So we're going to go up here, create a new layer, we're going to call it appliances. We're going to press enter, and we're going to make it a different color. So we don't want white. Let's do blue. So we're going to do blue. And then we're going to go here, we're going to select this, we're going to select this. Well, actually, we're not going to select the cabinets, we're just going to select that. And we're going to switch the layers. So if you want to switch layers for objects, you select the object you want to switch the layer to, and then you come up here and you select the layer you want it to be on. So you can see it's appliances. It's a little blue, it's blue, it's blending in. You know, it's not super cool, it's not pretty, but it's sufficient for what we're doing. I'm also going to come up here and I'm going to create a new layer, and I call it cabinets / furniture. Usually, I don't think you would do furniture and cabinets, you know, with furniture generally, but you know, again, for this we're going to do that. I'm going to make it probably green. No, you know what? Let's make it yellow. And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to select that. I'm going to make it yellow. So then what I also want to do is I want to come to my line here, and I want to draw this line, and I'm going to just outline it. And then you can see here our white is blending with our blue. With the yellow, it's not so much of an issue, but if I come here and I trim this up, I kind of want to make this all blue. So I'm just going to come here, trim that up. I'm going to go to my appliances. I'm going to make the line, and then I'm just going to connect everything to how I want it, and there we go. So we have our fridge, we have our you know, cabinets and everything here. And then I also want to, you know, have a sink, so I can come here. I can. Would I make a sink appliances? I think for this I will. You know, we'll go in. We can draw a sink here. You know, you want to move it where you want it to go. So I'm just I'm going to put it, I guess, in the center of this. I'm going to put it there. And then what I also want to do is, again, I want to trim this out. And because the blue is annoying, we're going to want to trim that out, and we're going to want to fill that. And you can do this, you know, add an oven, you know, add what you need for all that, just to make sure that you have what you need. You know, maybe I shouldn't trim that out, actually. Make sure that it looks good, and you're doing what you need to do. So let's say that's a sink, that's a fridge, and we can continue on here. So one of the main issues that I'm seeing right now is I have all this space for the kitchen, and I have no space for a living space. So maybe I actually want to put the kitchen down here. So again, when you're doing things like this, you want to make sure you're doing things and you're designing correctly, because if you don't, it's going to be a pain in the butt. So I can move this if I wanted to, but you know what? I'm probably just going to leave it for now. And I'm actually going to measure this and see how this is. So that's 6 feet 4 inches. I might be able to fit something in there. You know, let's say, you know, we have our bathroom. So I'm actually going to grab some text here. And you can see here my text is really small and I need to scale it. So I'm actually going to go create a new layer, and I'm going to call that layer text. And I'm going to change it to, let's say, red. So I'm going to make all my text red. I'm going to click that. I'm going to go here, select my text. I'm going to switch it from appliances to text. And then I'm also just going to scale this because I don't want to mess with annotations right now. So I'm just scaling that up. And I'm going to probably scale it by 2 inches. There we go. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here. Paste, paste, because that's going to give me my base for what I want to do. So I'm just going to, instead of bathroom, bedroom. Instead of bathroom, we're going to do kitchen. And then instead of this, we're going to just put living room. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to make this whole section down here like a little living room or whatever. Again, 500 square feet is kind of hard to make work, but that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to come here, and then I'm going to come and select this rectangle up here. Now, if you want to make blocks, I actually have a block video. So, go check out the block video to learn how you would do, blocks in this. And I'm just going to leave a link to that in the top somewhere here. It's going to show up. Go check that out if you're interested in blocks, because that's going to help you a lot. I have other videos on layers as well if you need that. And yeah, we're just going to continue on here. So I'm not going to be playing with blocks in this video, but again, go check that out if you need that. So what we're going to want to do now is we can either leave this open or we can change it. So I might actually go here and I might just put, like, let's say a table. So I'm going to do my cabinets and furniture. So I'm going to take my table. I'm going to put it, I don't know, maybe somewhere in the middle here. I don't know. Yeah, that'll work, I guess. It's a pretty big table for 500 square feet, but that's okay. And then we're going to take our rectangle here, and we're going to draw a television, let's say. So you can see here that my television is, let's just make it like, I don't know, 5 feet. And then I've got my TV. I can make another table here. And I'll just put that, I'm going to try and center that as best as I can. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to draw a center line. I'm going to come here, drop it down. Our center is right there. So then I'm going to grab this, take it, and put it here. So if you're wondering what I did, so what I did is I found the center of this line here, or this line here, and then I found the center of this, and I simply drew a type of construction line. So I go across, and I simply followed it down. The green is what you can follow, and when there's a circle, that's going to show you that that's the center of those 2 points, and that's where I put that, and then I put the table right there, or the rug. I'm going to do that too. So I'm actually going to rotate this. So type in rotate if you want to change things out. Rotate it up. Put that there. And then you're going to want to have like a nice scale couch as well. So we're going to go here. And usually what you're doing is you want to make a block of a couch or something. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call that, well, I actually have furniture, so I don't even need a new layer. So I'm just going to get rid of that. But usually, yeah, you wouldn't have cabinets and furniture in the same one. But again, to try and get this done as quickly as I can, I'm just doing that. So, and then we're going to have a little couch here. Let's do, and then 4, just a nice little thing. And then let's just drop a line in it. And then what we can do is we can make it look a little more beautiful as well. So we can just come here. And then we're going to do 4 feet at 90. And then we're going to come here, we're going to trim this up, and there we go. So that's more of a couch type looking thing right here. Again, this can all be scaled to where you need it to go. I'm not even going to worry about that. So we have our couch, we have, let's say, a little table here, ottoman. We have our television. Maybe we have more cabinets actually under the TV. So maybe the cabinet runs across the wall here, and we can put that there. And then we have a nice little living room. We have an area here that's completely open. So we can actually take our massive table probably, and we can put it maybe, we don't want to put it in front of the fridge so you can open it. But maybe we want to put it here. And then, with this other space here, again, I messed up. I'm doing this all off the top of my head, but again, you're going to want to make sure that you're utilizing your space correctly. So that's going to be our living room. That's going to be our little, our table here, our little kitchen. And then what we want to do is we want to maybe add a shower. So I'm going to come up here and do plumbing fixtures. I'm going to make that green. And then I'm going to come up here, click, and make sure that that fits. I want it to be decently sized. So it's either going to be a stand-up shower or it can be just a full-on bath. And then we also want to determine where we want our toilet to be. So I'm probably going to put it on this side. So you can go and find blocks for toilets and everything. I'm just going to create a circle here, create a rectangle up here, and then I'm just going to connect these, and I'm going to trim it, make it look nice, and we're going to keep it there. Then we'll have a sink, so we can just go and draw a sink. So I'm kind of keeping the toilet away from the bedroom, because if the bed's up against this wall and someone's going to the bathroom, then you don't want to wake up at 1 a.m. So that kind of keeps that problem under wraps. So then we can go and we can go create our little sink here. So let's just make a round sink, because that's easier to do. Again, you're going to want to make sure this is more detailed and go and do what you need to. But again, for just the sake of getting things done for you guys and showing you how it would be done, that's kind of what we're doing. And then for our bedroom, we can make our bed. You make your bed as big as you need your bed to be, whatever size bed you want. I'm just going to make this one so that it fits in the room here. I'm probably going to put it up against here. I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. I'm going to shrink it. I'm gonna actually undo that. We're going to go down. I'm going to go up. And we're just going to leave it at that. And then you can go in and add your dressers as well. Again, my bed is not a plumbing fixture, so you're going to want to make sure that you're not making things what they're not and forgetting about it. So I'm just going to switch that to from plumbing fixtures to cabinets, sorry. And I'm going to go here, I'm going to add some more, a dresser. Maybe I've got a lamp beside my bed, or I've got little end tables. We're going to copy it, grab this, put it down, and there we go. So again, this bed looks insanely long for what it is, but you guys kind of get the picture. So the next important thing to do is to make your windows and to make your doors. So when you're making a doorway, you want to make sure that your doorway is actually how big a door is going to be. So this also depends on what kind of door you're using. So, I mean, if you're going to do a double door, then, it's going to be obviously double what it's supposed to be. But if you're using a single door, you're going to be using generalized measurements. So, in this case, if we're in an apartment, an interior door is probably anywhere from 24 to 36 inches, and then it's probably about 80 inches high. So, we don't really need the height in this case. So what we need to do is we need to grab our trusty dusty rectangle, and we're going to come here and we're going to create our doorway. So I'm going to make it 6 inches thick so that it fits with our door. And then I'm also going, or fits with our wall, sorry. And then I'm also going to make it so that it's, let's say 32 or 36 well, let's do 36 inches in length there. I'm actually going to go here to my layers. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call that door. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to make it a light blue or a cyan. I'm going to click that, get out, select this, switch it back to door, and then I have my door kind of right there. And then what I want to do is I want to make sure I'm opening it properly. So in this case, I'm probably going to open it to, I can either open it to the left or I can open it to the right, but I don't want it to interfere with this door. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to find the center of my thing here. So there's my center. I'm going to take this, I'm going to move, I'm going to use my move command, so I'm going to select this, type 22, I'm going to select the center of the top, and why I'm doing that is so I can line it up here properly. So I have the center of the top, I put it in, and now we have our door. So I'm also going to want to go and make sure that I'm doing my doors properly. So I'm going to come here to my lines. I'm going to add a door, and you know what, maybe I will just open it to the left, and I'm going to want to make sure that my door swing is actually how long the door swing would be. So again, that's going to vary depending on, you know, what kind of door you're using, what you're doing. But I don't know, the length is going to really depend on how thick your door is. So I'm probably going to do, I don't know, let's just do 2 feet to round it out. That's probably completely wrong, but again, we're trying to make it as simple as possible. And then we're going to go here, we're going to grab an arc, and we're going to specify where we want it, specify second point, and then we're going to want to specify where we kind of want our arc to be. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to make sure that everything looks good. You can see that doesn't look good. I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to trim it out, and there we go. So now we have our little door swing, and then what I can do is I can take this, I can type in block. I know I said I had the block tutorial. Go check that out still, but I'm going to type block. I'm going to call this door, and then I can specify a base point. So this is where it's going to be grabbing from. So I'm going to go pick point. I'm going to pick the point that I want this to show up on my cursor every time I use this block. So if I want it to be in the center here, I'm going to press the center. I'm going to click OK, and my block is done. So then what I want to do is I want to go select my objects once again, press enter, and there we have our block. So I can copy this block, or I can come up here, click insert, my door block is going to be here, and you can see it's at the center point that I wanted. So I'm going to add a door maybe here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to rotate it at the center, and I'm going to make it so that it lines up with this. And I'm going to go here, I'm going to trim that out. I'm going to trim, trim, trim. And then I'm going to go here actually, and I'm going to explode this block. And I'm going to create a new smaller block. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to pull it down, move over, and we can do this. And then I'm going to grab the center of this. I'm going to put it here. You can see my door swings are colliding. I don't like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this door, I'm going to flip it. Well, I'm going to flip it in the sense I'm going to mirror it, actually. I'm going to specify my mirror point. I'm going to put it here. Well, actually, my mirror point I want different. I want my mirror point here. Wait, why is it mirroring wrong? Hold on. That's okay. Erase source object, take this, move it down, put it where we want it to go. And there we go. So that's going to avoid conflicts with that. So what we can do now is, now that we have our doors in, again, these doors look horrible, but you know, again, we're just trying to get the idea out there. What we're going to want to do now is we're going to want to create our windows. So you're going to make windows relative to, you know, how you want your windows to be. So we're going to open this, click on that, make window. We're going to double click. We're going to change our color to a window that's different from doors, so that it's just, you know, easier. We're probably going to stick with some sort of blue, so we're going to click that one, and then we're going to go through and make our windows. So I detail in depth how to do this more in other videos, so make sure you do that. But this is just how you kind of put together a quick floor plan. You know, come here, put the window kind of where you want it. So grab your polyline, grab your rectangle, let's just say 5 feet. I grab this, I put it where I kind of want it to go. So let's say I grab the center, I want it to go somewhere around here. And I'm going to want to determine, well, how far off the wall do I want it? So I'm going to grab a line here, I'm going to set it across. Let's do a foot. I'm going to grab this, move it, grab the corner, and then I'm going to put it here. You can see it didn't want to do that. So I'm going to grab the corner again, move it down, put it there. And I'm going to erase this. And then what I can do is I can kind of do the same thing. So I can grab a line as well. I can take it from this corner here, make sure that it's the same corner. I think I used the inner one, so I'm going to use the inner one again. And you can see here, I'm going to then take this window. I'm going to copy the base point, which is the corner that I'm going to be grabbing from, and placing it. And then I'm going to come here and place it on my other line there. So I can go there, erase that, and then I have another window in. And then I would then you know, go and, you know, maybe add a window over the kitchen, because that's something you want, depending on, you know, what kind of apartment you got. We're just going to grab that and make sure it's all centered. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to take this. I'm going to make sure it's in line with my sink. Looks like it is. And there you have it. And the first one that we're going to do is just really basic. And it's literally just a bunch of, two-dimensional lines. So we're just going to grab our polyline. Feel free to follow along. I highly recommend if you need to, stop, slow down, and follow along, that you do that. And if you need to replay parts of the videos for the next little while, please do that just to make sure you're doing it right. And if you're having any issues, try to solve them, the way that you can, I guess, try to solve them. But I'm going to show you some of the tricks that I kind of use. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a straight line 46 to the right. So you can see here that my scale is pretty big, so I need to zoom in a little bit. So I'm going 46 over to this direction in a 0. So again, what I did there is I just typed in 46, I pressed tab, and then I pressed enter after I put in my 0. And then I have one that is, so it's 144 degrees to the right, and 42 long. So we just need to do some quick math. So we're doing 180, and we're going to subtract 144 from that, and I believe that's 36. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, yeah, that's 36. Once that's done, we go up by 20, and then we have to go over to this direction by 20 as well. Then we're going to go up by 10. We're going to go to the left by 30. We're going to go down 18. We're going to go to the left 44. We're going to go down 18.34. And then we're going to have to come here at the start. We're going to grab our polyline again. We're going to go up 9.78. And then we're just going to close this off. So this is the first shape, basic shape. Now, for what we're doing a bunch of parts that are kind of widely circulated for practicing. You may have even seen these before if you were, practicing on, a channel, on YouTube, or if you were just practicing by yourself. And the reason for that is because a lot of these parts kind of help you, they cover everything pretty much. So this one, again, just a basic shape. And then, you can go through there, you can dimension it and everything and make it work real nice. So we're going to do this. And then I'm probably going to do from here to here. Then I'll do this. And then we'll do this as well. And there we have it. So that's our first part. So that one was really easy, quick, easy to do, just a two-dimensional flat object with just, different dimensions all over the place. The next one we're going to do is a little more difficult. So we're going to need the circle tool for this. So we're going to go grab our circle. And we have to create a rectangle with a large circle in it, and then with smaller circles in them. So what we're going to do is we're going to start actually, we'll start with the circle. We'll go out with the radius of 2. So make sure you're in a radius. So we're going to type in 2, and it's going to be really small. So we're going to have to zoom in. That's our circle. And then we're going to have a rectangle that is 5.2 by 1.2. So we're going to go like this. We're going to type in 5.2, then we'll do 1.2. And then you're probably wondering, well, what do we have to do with this? Well, we need to grab the center. So we're just going to hover over the rectangle until we get our little movement key in the center here. We're going to grab it, and then we're going to do the same to our circle, and we're going to go put it there. Once that's done, we're going to come here. We're going to just trim these out, and that's the first part of the drawing. So the next thing we have to do is we are going to have to create our rectangles that are going to be centered on this as well. So we're going to just start here and make it rough. So it's going to be 10 by 6. So we're going to grab this, we're going to move it, and we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to go center it, and we're going to see that it's centered. So just to make sure, I'm going to go to my measure tool. And we're going to see that everything is in fact centered. Everything looks kind of good. Yep, everything's good. Go back to our rectangle. And the next thing we need to do is create a little plate that is on top of this plate. So the thing is here, you need to make sure that you have your distances and everything set. So what we know from our drawing is that this is half a millimeter off. So we just type in 0.5. We'll type in 0.5 here as well. So type in 0.5. We'll type in 0.5. And then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get our circle. So again, there's multiple ways that you can do this. However, you're going to have to, be aware that we're teaching kind of how to do this in a more basic way. If you find a better way to do this, absolutely go ahead and do it. So the next thing we want to do, like I said, is we put our little corners in. And then we need to connect these in like it's going to be curved in the corners here. But we don't really have any information, about that. So I'm just going to look here on the drawing. We have a radius of 1. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to create a circle, and I'm going to make the radius 1. And then I'm going to take this, I'm going to move it. And I'm actually going to take the bottom here, and I'm going to line it up here. And then I'm going to take the side without moving the bottom. And I'm going to take here, and I'm going to line it up here, and then make sure it's lined up where that one was. Because what this is doing is I'm getting this corner here, and I'm getting this corner here, and I can then connect these on the tangent. So I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. But I'm just going to go around, copy this. I'm going to take this corner now. I'm going to go up. I'm going to get it as close as I need to. We're going to put it there. We're going to check to make sure that this is where we want it to go. It's actually perfect for where we want it to go. We're going to grab this corner here. We're going to copy it again. I'm going to grab the bottom. We're going to go over. And then what we need to do is we need to set it here kind of where it should be. And then what we do is we take this, we move it, and then we can line it up with this. And then we put it there, so it's slightly off. So another way that you could do this is you could draw the line straight across and have it intersect here. So you could do this, and then you could also do this. But what you're really, because eventually you're trying to like get these straight lines to butt up against these parts of the circle. But the way I did it, it saves you a step. So if you want to do it the line way, feel free to do it. But I'm just going to keep doing it this way. I'm going to copy. I'm going to select the object that I want to copy. Press Enter. We're going to go up. And then we're going to put it about here. We're going to take this. We're going to move it. We're going to go here. Grab that right there. And then we're going to make sure it's like that. So then once that's done, we need to make sure that this is straight. We're at 0 degrees. Perfect. So I'm just going to go through. I'm going to grab a polyline. I'm going to go through. I'm going to click that there. I'll actually click a line. I'll use a line. We're going to go here. Make sure that your angle, you can see my angle is 90 degrees. Make sure your angle is where it needs to be. Because if it's 1 degree off or 2 degrees off, it's not very precise. Make sure that it's precise. So we're going to go click that. We're going to go make sure that's good too. We're going to go through here to the bottom. We got 3.180. We're good. 180. We're good. Click, click. That's good. That too. That is also good. You do this, and there you go. So the next thing we want to do is we want to go through and trim this out, so we can go trim out our circles. So you can see that it doesn't want me to trim this for some reason, so I need to go and make sure that everything's connected properly. There we go. And then I can go through and I can get rid of these little construction lines around here. When we get into the more complex stuff, we will be doing, a little bit more construction lines, just so you're aware. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create some little holes in these corners here. So the big portion of the hole is has a radius of 1. So this part actually here, the center of this circle. So you can see that I can snap still to the center of these circles. So I'm just going to go highlight those there. And this is actually exactly where we need it to be, because these little screw holes or whatever they are going to go in the center of our large circle here. So I can just go here and I can type in 1. Sorry, not 1. It's a diameter of 1. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to click this. I'm going to go to diameter. So to get to diameter from radius when you're creating a circle, just press the down arrow key, and then you'll be able to select diameter. Press enter. Type in 1. There you go. And then what we can do is create the inner circle, which has a diameter of 0.6. So we're going to go do the same thing, 0.6. There we go. We can grab this. We can copy it around. We'll copy the middle, and then we're going to go around and just place it where we need to go. And that's how you do that. You can also create an array for this. So, you know, if you really wanted to, you could array this all out, make it work. We'll get into arrays a little bit. Polar arrays are very, very helpful, especially if you're doing gears and stuff like this. And I'm going to show you how to use that actually later on. So that's how you do the second one. And you know what? Since I'm talking about arrays, I might as well not stop the lesson here, and we'll continue going with this lesson. We're going to make a type of gear, I guess. So this is just going to be an example. You know, don't get too mad with me if it's not proper and you're in the industry and you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Again, the point of this is to make sure that you understand how to do this. So we're going to come here. We're just going to create a circle. We're going to make it 10. We're going to get another circle. We're going to start it here. We're going to make this 12.5. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a construction line. So we're going to start at the top here. We're going to go up. We're probably going to go up by 10. Yeah, we'll go up by 10. And then I'm going to create little teeth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here, and let's say I want them out by, I don't know, 2.5 for the sake of this. So overall, it's going to be 5, so 2.5. That might be a little big, so we'll actually go and we'll make it 2. 2 at 0. There we go. And then we'll take this and we'll do 2 at 0. And it didn't work, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Get another line, make it 2. Perfect. Okay, there we go. So what I can do now is I can go and I can drop this as far down as I need it to be. So this is only for the one tooth. So we're going to come down. I don't know how deep this is going to be, but so we do that. We erase this, and then we have our tooth. So it's not connected, but I'm going to show you what to do next. You take this, we're going to join it, and then what we're going to do is we're going to select it and type in array. So type in array, press enter, and you're going to see it's going to say what type of array do you want. I believe we've touched on rectangular arrays and a little bit on path arrays, but polar arrays is what we need in this case. So we're going to click polar. And then it's going to say specify the center point of array. So this is very important. So please pay attention. The center point of your array is where you want your array to circle around. So because it's this far away from so if my center point's here, which it's going to be, and it's this far away from the center, everything around is going to be that far away as well. So everything's going to be the proper distance away as long as you space it properly. So we're going to just click the center here. And then you're going to see we have populated the rest of our gear. So if you come up here, you can see I can select how many teeth I want. So if I do 7, and then it's going to evenly space all of them out for me. If I want 8, if I want, I know this isn't a great gear. I know it doesn't work. You know, don't go too hard on me. But, you know, again, for the sake of the tutorial, we're doing it this way. I could do 11. I could do 12. You know, I could do 20, but you're going to get to a point where it's just, you know, insane. I think we'll probably stick with 10. Yeah, we'll stick with 10. And then you can just manually go through and adjust this. So you can see the in-between is, it specifies the angle between items. Again, if you're doing it with this, with polar arrays, you don't really want to change this, but you can. You know, but this is also going to change your fill. So the fill is the angle between the first and last item. So you can see here it's 360, so it's in a full circle. You can have your rows, your levels, your between, your columns, everything like that. That's just like in you know, rectangular arrays, other types of arrays. That information is all here as well. So you just come here, you can make what you need to, press close array when you're done. And then what you can do is you can grab your polyline and you can just click around. And you can just go click, 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 or your line tool, you just click around. And you can make that work. Another thing you could do is instead of you know, doing this all manually like I'm doing it, I can do half of it. So I can actually just do half of it. I can select this, I can select that, I can select that, I can select that. I can mirror it. My mirror line is going to be there. I'm going to specify it there. We're not erasing the source object. I'm just going to go and select all these. It would be easier if I had them joined as an item. And then I can go and I can move this and I can just specify it here. And then everything's going to be joined together perfectly. And that's how you would do polar arrays. We want to activate 3D tools. So in order to do that in AutoCAD 2026, if you're in previous versions, you should have a similar way of doing this. But in AutoCAD 2026, you have to come up here, right click on your bar, and then you're going to see we're going to have a variety of things we can do here. So we have our show tabs. We want to turn on 3D tools. Make sure there's a check mark, click that, and then activate it and let it show up. Once that's done, we can go here and we have our 3D tools available. So we're going to get started on 3D tools. So this tutorial, again, very basic. We're just going to show you how to start using it. So if you come here, you're going to have a few tools you can use. So we have a box, we have a cylinder, we have a cone, we have a sphere, we have a pyramid, we have a wedge, we have a torus and polysolids. These are all tools we can use in AutoCAD. So if we want to create a box, we just click the box and then we click and we pull and then we create how tall we want it to be. So I'm going to type in 100. You're probably thinking, well, why isn't it in 3D? Well, that's because I didn't activate the 3D view in AutoCAD. So I'm going to want to come here to the right-hand side where this beautiful little bar is, and we're going to want to go and click on a corner. So if I click the corner there, there we go. Now we're in 3D mode. So now we can see our box in 3D. So I'm going to kind of show you how to navigate around this for a minute. So usually when you're doing drawings in a three-dimensional space, I tend to use the bottom left-hand corner because it's just standard, I guess, for what you usually use. You can also use the right-hand corner as well. It really depends what you're, or who you're working with, what you're doing, and kind of what you're trying to figure out in AutoCAD. You can also do like the bottom right corners. You can do just the sides like this, but that's less 3D. If you do the corners, though, that's the most 3D you're going to get. And you can zoom in and out, and it's just easier to see at these angles that we have here. So you can go play around with that, figure out how you enjoy using it and how you like it. And we're just going to continue on here. So if we come here, you can create cylinders, draw your cylinder, pull it up, everything, and you just draw a cylinder. It's really easy and quite simple to use. Now there's another thing that you can do. So I'm going to go back to my home tab and I'm actually going to draw a square. I'm going to draw a square. So this is just a 2D square. And if I come back to my 3D tools, I can do what's called an extrude. So if I type in extrude and wait for my command to load, I press enter. What extrude is going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to pull up my 2D object into a 3D object. So if you think about it like this, it's pretty much, okay, I drew a 2D rectangle. I want it to be a three-dimensional object. I want my rectangle to become a box. So what I do is I just type in extrude and I pull it up to where I want it to go. I click, it's going to set, it's going to work, and then we're going to have our box object. So please keep in mind that 3D is a very taxing program on a lot of systems. You should have a pretty powerful system if you're using AutoCAD in general. But if you're using an AutoCAD 3D, it can really lag down your system, and just make sure you're constantly fixing things, adjusting things, and making things work. So that's how you would extrude. So I can actually do this for any type of object I draw. Now I recommend you draw two-dimensional objects in a two-dimensional plane, simply because if you're doing 3D, sometimes it's going to draw in a three-dimensional plane and you're not going to notice. But if you're in 2D, you're going to know where everything's going to go. So if I come here and I grab my polyline, I can just go around and I'm just going to draw a random object here. So I'm just going to go here. I'm just going to go draw around, make some object. You can see that it's starting to cause a little bit of issues with my computer, but that's okay. So let's say I want something like this. And then I connect it. So when I connect it, that's really the important part when you're extruding. And the reason for that is when you're extruding and you don't have a connected part, it's not going to extrude into a 3D object. For instance, if we go to our 3D tools and we change kind of how things look. So if I come here, I'm just going to see where my tools are. I want to see my visualization tools. I go to visualize, so activate your visualize tools. You come here, you can see we are currently in a 2D wireframe. If I click conceptual, it's going to bring me to a more conceptual view of what it's going to look like. So this is going to quickly illustrate my point. If you have an object that is drawn, let's say, let's just get a polyline here for a minute. and let's draw up. We're going to just draw something like this, and we're not going to close it off, but I am going to extrude it. So I'm going to select it, I'm going to extrude it, and if I pull it up, you're going to see that it's not going to create a solid object. It's pretty much, I guess you could say it's creating like a wall type thing. Now this is something that if you want it, you know, that's great. If it works for what you're working on, that's amazing. But for the most part, that's something you want to avoid when you're creating things, because there's ways around that. So just keep that in mind. So what we can do is we can extrude this object. So we're just going to select it. We're going to extrude it, and we'll pull it up, and you can see that we have successfully extruded this. So extrusion is good for making basic objects and shapes, and it's mostly useful for, let's say, blocky things. So there are other commands that you can use. So if we come here and we go to we have a press pull command. So that is kind of similar to, you know, extruding, except it's a little more different. So what this does is, let's say if I get my press pull command, it's going to let me pull out the face from my object there. So I can select a face and I can pull out the object. So that is what the press pull does. So think of it as like stretching your objects, but in a three-dimensional space. So that's the press pull command. It's very useful to use. So once we've figured out solids a little bit, now we need to talk about meshes. So you can convert objects into meshes like I did here, but you can see that there's a problem with the meshes, and it's a problem. So what we want to do is create an actual mesh. So if we type in mesh, you're going to see we have all these commands that we can do. We can have, you know, you can subtract mesh, add mesh, but we just want to add a mesh. So we're just going to go all the way to the top here, click mesh, and we can select which type of mesh we want to start with. You know, it depends on what you're doing, but we're going to click with a box. We're going to start with a box. We're just going to draw a mesh box here, and there we go. So once we have that, you can see that our mesh box has miniature boxes in it. So what this does is it allows us to pull off, let's say, different types or different areas of our mesh box so that we can, you know, work on it. So what we can do is we can start smoothing or de-smoothing our object. So we can't really smooth less than how it is because it's already like blocky. But if you click smooth more, we can make it more smooth and soft, and we can make it super smooth and soft. So one of the things with this though is that it's not going to hold on, I need to go back because I did that too quick. You're going to see it still has the same amount of meshes we have before when we first added it, but we could have a lot more. But if I type or click refine mesh, so this will greatly increase the number of faces in selected mesh objects. Before you click this, before you do this, please be aware this can destroy your computer. So if you have a, you know, just be prepared for that you might have to restart the computer or restart AutoCAD. But you can see here in the example they give, it significantly increases the amount of spaces that you can adjust. So if I click refine mesh, it's going to give me like this absolutely absurd amount of mesh faces. So what can I do with this? Well, I can actually mesh extrude. So you can see here I have all these mesh options, mesh cubes, mesh refine, mesh, which is what we just used. Mesh extrude is what I'm looking for. And then I can go to each individual box on here. Let's say I want to do that one. I press enter and I can actually pull that out of my object. So you're going to see here, yeah, that's still a little square, but it's more refined. So here's the thing. If I smooth that, I can go and individually smooth that as much as I want, and it'll simply fuse with the item so it's no longer a square of that type. So you can see here we've made that an object now, and that is how you can kind of use it. So what I've done is I've gone and created a new mesh box because I actually had a crash myself. So what we're going to want to do is click on this. And then what we can do is we can also convert this to a surface, or we can convert it to a solid. So if we click convert surface, it's going to change it into a surface, and we're going to have all these little you know, bumps and everything on it again. And then you can go and work with that as well. So once you're done messing with meshes, you can come to the surface commands, and we have a variety of surface commands here. So we can blend, offset, extend. These are all things that you can do to play around with your surfaces in AutoCAD. However, most of the time, you know, sticking with meshes tends to be the best that you should do. Okay, so we haven't touched on blocks yet, but I'm going to quickly go over, you know, what blocks are and how we can make them. So what is a block? Well, a block is an object created from other objects, so things such as circles, polylines, lines, rectangles, arcs, ellipses, things like that. It's all of those things put into one object. So I know that I mentioned earlier in the floor plan portion of this course that, you know, I was going to leave links and stuff around, but I'm actually going to just put that right here. So you're going to be able to just come here and watch that. So what is a block? So a block is what I just described, but how do we make a block? What is a block usually? So a good example of a block would be things such as, you know, doors, windows, you know, let's say couches, let's say, you know, tables with chairs around it. These are all things that can be blocks, and these are things that are most likely to be used as blocks, like windows, things like that. So those are things that you would use on a regular basis. So if you're doing floor plans and you're doing things, it would be things, I guess, that you could say that you would use on a regular basis. And they're things that you would use almost all the time. So how do we make one? Well, we're going to come up here and we're going to, I'm going to try and think, what should I make? Let's make a couch, let's say. I'm not going to use actual dimensions, of course, but you know, let's actually go to our layers. I'm going to create a new layer, and we're going to call this layer example blocks. So I'm going to set that. I'm going to change the color to maybe an orange, and then we're ready to go. So I'm going to actually grab a rectangle because, you know, couches, and I'm going to, you know, it's not, again, it's not going to be to scale. But we're going to just put it there. We're just going to make it draw it so that it looks kind of like one. Let's say I drop a line down here for the love seat, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. And then we have our arms here. You know, let's do 4 inches. And then we're going to go up 2.5 feet. Then we're going to go across. Or actually, I'm not going to go across. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna copy it over, and then I'm going to mirror it. See, this is an example of where I would mirror something and I would delete the object. So I take that, move it, and then I'm going to connect those 2 lines with a line. And there we have it. If you want to be, you know, a little better, we can grab this and we can use the offset tool. So we're going to go offset. We're going to specify our distance to be 6 inches. Well, actually, we're not going to do 6 inches. Let's do 2 inches. We're going to offset on both sides. And then I'm going to get rid of this. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to trim. And there we go. So that's close enough. So this is an object, let's say, that you would use on a regular basis. Let's say I want to use this as a block. So nothing is joined together. Everything is its own separate thing. But I want to use it as a block. So what I want to do is I can do this 2 ways. So I can either create a block using this, or I can select this, type in block, press enter, and then I can name it. And then once I name it, I can specify all this kind of thing down here. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to select maybe pick point. So this is probably the most important thing, actually, for when you're selecting a point to insert your blocks at. So you can specify the point or pick the point. You can do either or you can just type in where you want it to go. But what I highly, highly recommend is you click pick point and then select a point on your block that you want. So I'm going to do the bottom left-hand corner. And that's going to be when I use this block where it imports from. If you do not do this, your block will show up randomly somewhere on the screen most of the time. So keep that in mind. So pick your point. You can select your block units, description, love seat. You know, that's about it. And then you can make it annotative, things like that. I'm just going to leave it. Allow exploding. So exploding is how you would destroy a block. I'll show you that in a minute. Click OK. It's going to ask me to select my objects again. I'm going to press enter. And now it is one uniform object. So once that's done, if I come up here to insert, you're going to see I can just keep inputting my love seats. So this works for windows, doors, chairs, anything you need to do. That's how you would create a block. So what if I need to edit it? Well, if I select it and type in B edit, so that's block edit, I press enter, it's going to ask me which one do I want to edit. So I'm going to select my love seat. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to be brought to this. So this is where you can edit and create dynamic blocks. We're not going to go over dynamic blocks in this lesson just because it would create too much. But here you can go and add parameters and actions, and you can edit how everything would look. So I can like stretch things, like make things bigger. I can move things where they're supposed to be. Once that's done, if I click Close Block Editor, it'll ask me, do you want to save the changes? I'm going to select yes if I wanted to. I'm going to select no if I didn't want to. And that's how you would do that. So that's how you do that. If you want to edit it from here, you can just type in explode for a specific block. If you want to edit a specific block, you just need to change something. You can type in explode, and it's going to blow it up from what it was as a joined together union object and create this. I can always come to insert because I created the block. I can always come to insert and re-input the block, and you can see this one here is a uniform object, and this one is not. And that's because I exploded it. So exploding allows you to remove things, add things. Like let's say I want to get rid of this and I want to join these two together just to, make it a little, a single chair or whatever. And then I can go through and I can shrink things as well. And that's how you can, explode and edit things. And then that way too, I'm using this as the base. Whereas, and I have to do a lot less work than if I just simply, created it from scratch. So that's kind of like a basic introduction to blocks. We went through a little bit of that again in the floor plan, but this is how you do basic blocks at that level. So what I want you guys to do now is, if you haven't already, we've gone through a little bit of the precision drawing quickly. We've gone through the floor plan. What I want you guys to do is maybe pause the video and go create your own floor plan, because what that's going to do is it's going to really allow you to work on those things, because you need a little bit of hands-on practice as well. So that's going to be your hands-on practice. So I suggest you go after you're done this video, creating your own floor plan, getting that done, and just practicing and rewinding if you need to. So that's how you would do blocks in AutoCAD. That's just a basic example of blocks. All right, so we're going to go over hatching because that's something we have not touched on yet. So what is hatching? Well, if you watch the previous video or the previous segment of this video where we actually built this floor plan, you're going to realize we didn't go over hatching. Well, now we're going to go over hatching. So what is hatching? Well, hatching is kind of used to denote materials and what things would kind of look like, and it's just a way to kind of tell materials and stuff. So another thing to note is, with that said, for your computer, you're going to want to be careful when you're doing hatching, because if your system is on the weaker side, then you may have stability issues when doing hatching. If you're using AutoCAD 2025 or AutoCAD 2026, then you're going to have a new feature where you can just draw hatching, so that'll prevent issues from where before on the channel and through this tutorial we have talked about your lines being joined together and properly fitted. If they're not, sometimes that'll create leakage with your hatching and it'll spill over into things you don't want it to be into. So keep that in mind. And with that said, we're going to get into it. So what I want you to do is type in hatch in your command bar, press enter, and you're going to see we're going to have the ability to hatch. So my computer is pretty good with this. But you can see that it's so small that it's just blue. It's just a sea of blue. So if I click there, you're going to see that that's hatch, but it's so small. So what I have to do is click on my hatch, and I'm actually going to change this and make it look a little better. Okay, so there we go. So I'll erase that. So how do we hatch? So type in hatch, and you're going to have this new bar appear at the top here. So when you're hatching, before you type in the command, make sure that you're in an area where you can hatch. Make sure you're not in a huge space that could cause stability issues, and we'll get started. So, first things first is we're going to just talk about this, and then we'll go to our layers and change all that. So you're going to see your hatch is going to be based on the layer you're currently on. So mine's blue right now. You're going to see up here in the top left, we have a pick point, select, all this other things. We don't need to worry about that right now. We're going to be using those commands in the drawing. If you come here, you're going to see we have a drop-down menu with all these different types of hatching that we can use in our drawing. So we kind of want to pick one that's going to work well with what we're doing. So I'm going to be hatching between the interior and exterior walls. So you're going to want to find something that kind of works. You can see we have gravel here, insulation here. I'll actually do that. I'll actually do the insulation. And what you want to do is you want to go around and you want to click those interior points where you want that to be seen. So I actually don't want that seen in between my doors. So I'm going to redo that command. So I'm going to come here. We're still on insulation. I'm going to click that. 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 You're going to see I only clicked on my walls, and they're the ones that are highlighted. I did not click in between my windows. I did not click on my doors. So that's just something to keep in mind. Once you're done with the command, press escape, and your hatch will show up. So another thing is, it doesn't matter where you click. You can see these are all disconnected for the most part, but they're all acting as one hatch. So the way that works is when you just click around and you add the hatch to the drawing, every instance of the command, it's going to be its own hatch, I guess you could say. So the first thing is to edit the size of your hatch. So you can see here ours is 1. I'm going to put it to 25 again to see how that would work. And I really don't like that. So I'm going to go to 10. And that looks a little better. No, we'll go 5. Let's try 7.5. Okay, that's good. So we'll leave that at 7.5. And then I'm going to close my hatch editor. And you can see that my hatch is in there. So I actually don't want this being on that layer. So what I'm going to do is I can actually manually go in here and switch it. So I'm going to switch it to red. But then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come to my layers here, and I'm going to create a new one and do hatching. So I'm going to change that to hatching, and I'm going to make it the same type of red that I kind of selected for that. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to go by block, and you can see here that I've switched it to the block, to the hatching layer, which is really good. So I'm going to go edit my color here, and we can just kind of play around with it. Maybe we'll make it orange. And then what we'll do is go here. And what we're going to do is we'll make that orange as well. So yeah, that actually didn't switch. So again, make sure when you're doing your hatching that you're on the right layer. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to switch it. But you know, if you followed along with me and you had that, I recommend you delete your hatch, make it again, and make sure that your layer is selected for your hatching. I'm just going to change it for the sake of this. And then what you can do is you can see that we have our hatch. So what hatching does, I'm just cleaning up my drawing as I talk to you. What hatching does is it really just lets you see, it really just lets you see what things would kind of be, and again, for materials and things. So again, if I wanted to go to my cabinets and furniture and I type in hatch, because I'm going to do those, I'm just going to come here and I'm going to try and find a hatch that would work with that. So you can see there's so many hatches you can choose from. Let me see here. I think there's a wood one. There should be a wood one in here somewhere. Maybe I want to do, yeah, this shouldn't be so hard. You see we have glass here. There's wood. So what I can do is I can take my wood hatch and I can just go through and I can hatch my cabinets there. You know, if that's wood, I can hatch that. My tables here, my stand there, that would probably be wood. You know, that as well. So then we have our wood, and then we've got our appliances. So what I can do then is I can go through and hatch with that as well. And then, you know, you kind of get the picture. You can go through and hatch it all. But that's just really important to know. So that's how you would hatch in AutoCAD. But what I want to do too is I kind of want to go over a little bit of this stuff here, just so that you're aware. So you can see that we have associative and annotative scale. For the most part, you're going to want to stick with associative boundaries. Don't really change that. For annotative, keep that. That's going to adjust the scale size to the viewport scale. So don't worry about that. Just manually adjust it like I showed you here, because you can come here again and you can change it from 1 to 25 to 35. You know, just play around with the numbers. You can even go below 1. So you could do 0.5. So for half, if you want half the size, you do 0.5. If you want a quarter the size, 0.25, and it just kind of works like that on, let's say, a percentage, I guess, based scale, or a decimal scale. So that's what you would do there. For your angle, this adjusts the angle of your hatch as well. So if I take this, I'm going to give you an example. So if I click that and we zoom in for a minute, and I go and I adjust the angle, it's going to rotate. You can see it's rotating my hatch. So I can actually rotate my hatch if I don't like how it's looking, and I can make it look different. So in this case, let's say I want to change how my insulation, I hate my insulation, I don't like that angle. What I can do is I can come and I can rotate it up so that it looks better, and I can go, you know what, that looks way better than it did the other way. I like that. And then once I'm done, I simply close the hatch editor and it will be done. The hatch editor will open every time you click on that portion of the hatch, and you're going to be editing that hatch. So right now I'm editing just that hatch. If I click the other one, I'm editing both hatches. So if you select multiple hatches, you're going to be editing them all at once. And you can see here that the angle varies, and all these other things are going to vary, and you're going to have blank, numbers for your scaling and everything. And that's simply because, you've selected more than one. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm just going to go back here for a minute. You can see you can select your colors. You can change your pattern from a solid to a gradient to a pattern, which is what we were using. You can also create a user-defined one as well, which it'll create a hatch from the current line type with the specified spacing and angling, but we don't want to do that. And then your hatch transparency shows you the transparency. So at 90, it's almost invisible, and at 0, it's fully opaque. And then over here as well, you can select a different type of color as well. But that's mostly how you deal with hatches. All right, guys. So with that said, we're going to be moving on to our viewports and our layouts, and this will be the last major part of this video. So what you're going to want to do now is, now that you have everything drawn, now that you have everything scaled, now that everything looks really good in AutoCAD, you're probably wondering, how on earth do I get it on paper? How can I download it as a PDF? How can I make it look really good? And that's what we're going to do. So if you come down here, you're going to see we have our layout. So if we click Layout 1, we're going to be brought to Paper Space. So what Paper Space does is it allows us to, well, plot everything on a piece of paper. So the first thing that we want to do when we're in Paper Space is we want to set up our layers. So if we right-click on our layout, you're going to see we have all these tools here. You're going to want to click Page Setup Manager, and you're going to want to click New. This is going to allow us to create a new page setup. So we're going to do example page setup. We're going to click OK, and it's going to bring us to this new dialog box. So this allows us to select our printer. You can select whichever printer you have. You can print it to a PDF, print it to a bunch of things that you can play around with here. So select whatever you want to print it to. In a lot of cases, you're going to print to PDF. So when you print to PDF, all it does is change your DWG file into a PDF file that you can save with people. You can see here that it's going to have a plot scale. So this is the scale of your drawing. If you're using annotative styles, make sure this matches with what you were kind of drawing in so that it fits properly. It's going to ask you what type of letter you wanted, or sorry, what type of sheet of paper you want to use. You can use all of these here. You can select what you want. I'm going to do Arch D in this case. And it's going to ask you a bunch of other things. We don't need to deal with this offset thing right now. We want to plot the layout. We're going to keep our scale the same. Everything's going to look the same. I'm going to just go here. So it says plot style tables. We don't really want to deal with that, but you can see here you can print in grayscale and monochrome as well. You can change the quality to draft, preview, normal presentation, maximum. It depends what you're doing, but in this case we'll just use maximum. And then it'll go and ask you to plot, like, what does it want you to plot? For plotting transparency, you don't tend to have that on, which is okay. And then it's going to ask you for the drawing orientation, and it'll show you either portrait or landscape, and that's kind of where you're drawing and how it would look. You could also plot upside down if you so desire. Once you have this set to where you need it to be, you click OK, and then you can just select that, set as current, and you're going to see it's going to change the paper on the background. If it doesn't change the paper, you did not set it as a current. So if you want to, just select what you did, set as current, and then close. Once that's done, most of the time what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a viewport, but I'm just going to stick with the basic viewport that they give you in this, the base viewport. So I'm just going to scale that. So you can see here that we have our viewport. So that's another thing. All you have to do is click the edges of your viewport, and you can see you have the 4 corners, and you can expand it to anywhere. And just keep in mind you want to keep it between those dotted lines, because that's where it's actually going to show on your paper. So you want to make sure that it is in between your lines. You're not going to be able to snap to it, but you can get pretty close. Once that's done, and you have to click on the outer barrier. If you click on the inside, it's not going to do anything. You can't just click on the inside and select it. You have to click on the outside. What you want to do is you want to double click into your viewport, and you're going to want to scroll. So if you don't double click into your viewport, you're not going to be able to move. You're going to want to be able to find what your drawing was, and you can see here that my dimension styles and my texts are showing up regardless of whether I zoom in or out. One of the issues that you can have, and you will have if you're using the annotative styles, is these are linked to the scale of your drawing. So if you're on here and your viewport is set to 1 to 2 instead of, let's say, 1 to 3, which is what you're drawing in, you will not see these. So you need to make sure that you have the viewport set to the correct scaling as well. So if you come down here and click on this, you can see it says 0.83 whatever. If you click that, you can see we have all our scales. So all you got to do is, if you're using annotative scales and your text isn't showing up, click 1.4. If yours is 1.4, and it'll show up. However, you have to make sure when you're scaling it properly, that's why you draw everything properly. I can't even see my drawing. So what you need to do is you need to find one that's going to work, kind of, and you need to just kind of work with that. So I'm going to do 1 to 10 for this example. Again, I didn't draw in 1 to 10, but I'm going to print it as 1 to 10, simply to make it easy. So once you come down here and you select which scale and everything you want, you have to lock it. If you put your cursor where you want it, and you're like, okay, it looks good here, what you want to do is double click outside of the viewport, or sorry, you want to click the viewport, come down here, click the lock icon, and that's going to lock you in so you can't mess anything up. So you cannot get into the viewport anymore, which is what you want. If you want to go and edit it, you simply unclick it, and then you can double click in, and you'll be able to move the viewport. So keep that in mind. Click on the lock, and then to get out of your viewport, simply double click, and you'll be out. What's left next is, once you have it plotted, it looks beautiful, looks nice, you have everything where you want it to do, is you need to create your title block. So, all you got to do is, a lot of places have their own title blocks. If you don't know what a title block is, you can draw your own. All it pretty much is it's a thing on the side of the drawing that says, we work at this firm. You're going to have a bunch of lines in here that are going to have different things in here. So what you do here is you'll select this. We're going to switch from dimensions. We're going to create a new layer. We're going to call it title block. And we're going to select that. And then we're going to select what we drew. I'm going to go to title block. Also, never select def points. Don't ever draw in def points. And then what you want to do is you want to have certain sections here where you can, have your date, your time, or not your time. You want your date. You want your company. You're also going to want to have things like maybe you have your project name, things like that. So you're going to have all these different lines in here just to kind of show you. So maybe up here you have the date, and then here you have your company, and then here you have your name, and then you'll have like your revision number, and then you'll have the project name and all that kind of thing. There's other videos on creating the title blocks, but I'm not going to go over that. It's just, if you want to figure out how to do title blocks, you can go and I'm going to have, maybe I will actually make a segment on title blocks, but you'll know later on. But yeah, so you make your title block, you put it here, and then you'll have it printed. So that's how you would deal with your layouts as quickly as possible in AutoCAD. So again, you want to make sure that your viewport is scaled properly, it's selected properly, it's locked in place. You're going to want to have your title block on the side with everything, all the information that you need, and then you'll be good to go. You can also come down here to your layout and you can rename it. So I can call this floor plan arc or something, and then you can also have your different layouts for different things here. So if I click layout 2, I could go over my couch, let's say, and then I could have a completely new layout for this. So one thing to keep in mind is you're going to have to use the page setup manager to do this again. So you can set that up, do whatever, and then you can have as many of these as you want. You can have as many layouts as you want to set everything up. So that's how you would do layouts in AutoCAD. So guys, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. It took quite a bit to put together, but hopefully it really helped you guys. So if you need anything else, feel free to reach out. If you want to check out some of our programs that go very in-depth with AutoCAD, we have a coaching program that we do host. If you're interested in that, you can go check that out. Yeah, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.